The calm before the storm. In the vast, uncharted reaches of the galaxy, the stars shone brightly, and the peaceful silence of space was only disturbed by the hum of distant ships and the occasional spark of distant planets. The galaxy had been at peace for centuries, with the most powerful empires and species ruling with no threat in sight. They had conquered the stars, reshaping planets, claiming territories, and sending out trade routes that spanned across the entire galaxy. Among these powerful empires was the Zorathian Empire. The Zorathians had long held the title of the most advanced and ruthless civilization. Their fleets were unstoppable, and their warriors were feared throughout the galaxy. They had conquered planets, crushed rebellions, and erased any resistance that dared to oppose them. To the Zorathians, there was no force in the galaxy that could challenge them, and they ruled with pride, confident in their power. The galaxy's other species, though formidable in their own rights, looked up to the Zorathians for guidance and strength. Every planet, from the icy world of Hortus to the scorching deserts of Vexar, knew their place. Each species was either too small to matter or too weak to challenge the established order. The galaxy had settled into a stable, peaceful routine. The aliens laughed at the thought that anyone, let alone humans, could be a threat to this balance. Humans were a distant species, living on a small blue planet called Earth, far from the grand galactic center. The galaxy's most advanced races saw them as a primitive species, still struggling with technology and barely able to leave their own planet. For centuries, Earth was nothing more than a curiosity to the galactic empires. While humans had occasionally made a name for themselves with small advancements in science and technology, they were nowhere near the level of the great galactic powers. The Zorathians dismissed Earth as nothing more than a speck in the cosmos. "They're weak," the Zorathian leader, Emperor HFY, often said to his council. "We've monitored their progress for years. They're still far behind us. They don't even know how to travel beyond their own solar system. Let them grow, but they'll never be a threat." The council of other galactic leaders nodded in agreement. They agreed with Emperor HFY. Humans were nothing more than a passing curiosity, and their potential for danger was minimal. The galactic powers continued their expansion, enjoying the stability and peace that their superiority brought. They didn't have time to worry about humans. There were far more important matters to attend to, such as suppressing rebellions, negotiating trade routes, and dealing with the ongoing political disputes between the larger empires. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans lived their lives unaware of the galactic powers watching them. They focused on their own problems, their own wars, and their own struggles. Earth was in a constant state of change. Some humans fought wars over resources, others built towering cities that stretched toward the heavens, and still, others reached for the stars, hoping to someday explore beyond their own world. But the humans had no idea that the galaxy was watching them. They didn't know that empires far larger and far more powerful than anything they could imagine were keeping track of their every move. They were unaware that the galaxy had already written them off as insignificant. And yet, beneath this peaceful surface, something began to stir. It was subtle at first, a small, strange signal that appeared on the outermost edges of the galaxy, far beyond the reach of even the most advanced ships. The signal was faint, barely detectable, and seemed to come from a distant part of the galaxy where humans had recently sent a probe. The galaxy's surveillance systems were vast and connected, so the signal caught the attention of a few curious officials. "What is that?" one of the Zorathian officers asked, studying the strange signal on his monitor. "It's nothing," another officer said dismissively. "Just some debris from a human probe. Let's not waste time on it. We have more important matters to focus on." The signal was quickly forgotten by most. After all, the Zorathians had no reason to believe that humans could be behind it. To them, it was just another anomaly in the vastness of space. The idea that it could be a sign of human advancement, or worse, a sign of human threat, seemed laughable. Yet, in the back of their minds, a seed of doubt began to grow. If humans were still so primitive, why had this signal appeared? Why did it seem so strange? But the galaxy, in its overconfidence, chose to ignore it. They were too busy basking in their power to see the danger quietly approaching from the shadows. And so the galaxy remained at peace, unaware that the storm was about to break. The calm before the storm continued, but something had begun to shift. The galaxy's leaders, with all their strength and wisdom, could not see that their greatest mistake was just around the corner. They had underestimated humans, believing them weak and insignificant. Soon, they would find out how wrong they truly were. The first signs of trouble. The first signs of trouble came unexpectedly. It was a disturbance in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, a place where few bothered to look. The galaxy's most powerful empires had long since ceased to worry about these remote corners. Yet, as reports started to trickle in from various monitoring stations, something unusual began to emerge. It began as a series of strange, almost imperceptible glitches in the communication systems. At first, the monitoring stations thought it was nothing more than solar flares or routine interference. But then, something caught their attention. A series of military outposts, once thought to be safe, went silent without warning. No signals, no distress calls, just complete, eerie silence. These were not minor outposts, either. They were key strategic points, heavily guarded and bristling with weapons, designed to withstand any attack from even the most powerful enemies. At first, the alien leaders dismissed the reports. It must be some sort of malfunction, one said. Perhaps they've simply lost contact. But as the days passed, the number of silent outposts began to grow. Entire sectors of the galaxy seemed to be under some kind of strange, unknown attack. First, it was one outpost. Then it was two. Soon, whole colonies disappeared without leaving a trace. No debris, no survivors, nothing. Just vanished. The Zorethian Empire, which prided itself on its military might, was the first to take notice. They sent scouts to investigate the troubling reports, but each time the results were the same. There was nothing. No evidence of hostile forces, no signs of an attack. It was as if the very planets and ships had just ceased to exist. A worried buzz began to ripple through the Zorethian ranks. Could this be some new, unknown weapon? A rogue alien species? Or worse, was it humanity? The thought seemed ridiculous. Humans had no fleet, no advanced weaponry. But the more the Zorethians investigated, the more they found small anomalies, signs of something, a disturbance, a presence. "We must be cautious," said a Zorethian general, his face grim as he studied the reports. "Something is happening, and we are blind to it." Even as the general spoke, another strange event occurred. A Zorethian warship patrolling a trade route near the human colony suddenly reported an attack. It was an ambush, and it came from nowhere. The ship had been swarmed by small, agile fighters. The attackers had no markings, no allegiance, but what was most shocking was the way the fighters moved. They were swift, precise, and human. The Zorethian warship barely escaped, returning to the safety of their nearest fleet. The crew was shaken, their confidence in their invincibility shattered. These weren't the crude, disorganized attacks they had expected from humans. These were well-coordinated strikes. Someone was sending a message. The report was kept secret. The Zorethian Empire didn't want to show weakness. After all, if humans were capable of such an attack, how could they be this organized and skilled? But deep down, a knot of unease began to form. Something had changed. The galaxy had been at peace for so long that no one could have prepared for this. As other species began to report similar incidents, the fear spread. Human vessels, once thought to be outdated, were now striking with an intensity and unpredictability that no one had expected. The humans were not simply defending themselves. They were fighting back, harder than anyone could imagine. A meeting of the galaxy's most powerful leaders was called. The Zorethians, the Hectralians, and the Distrians all gathered to discuss the growing concern. The atmosphere was tense. The last time they had come together in such a way was to discuss a galactic rebellion, but this was different. This was no ordinary attack. "We must act," said the leader of the Hectralians, a tall, spindly creature with scales that shimmered like stars. "We cannot allow these disruptions to continue. We need to send a message to these humans." "But how?" asked the Distrian leader, his voice cold and calculating. "The humans are not powerful enough to pose a serious threat to us. There are too many unknowns," said Emperor Xathar of the Zorathians, a deep frown forming on his face. "I still do not believe they are behind this, but we cannot rule out the possibility. We must investigate further. If it is them, we will be ready." The galaxy's leaders decided to send their most elite forces to investigate, expecting to quickly put an end to these mysterious disruptions. But they were unprepared for the truth they would uncover. The calm that had ruled the galaxy for so long was about to shatter, and the galaxy would soon realize that the humans they had long underestimated had awakened a fury that no one could have predicted. The galaxy's leaders began to see that something they had overlooked for so long, the raw potential of humanity, was about to change everything. They had no idea what was coming, but they would soon find out. The revelation. The galaxy's leaders, still skeptical of the possibility that humans were behind the mysterious disturbances, soon found themselves face to face with a reality they could not ignore. The Zorathian Empire, desperate to get answers, sent their finest fleet to the outskirts of the human colonies. They intended to investigate one of the most heavily hit areas, the planet Velar, a strategic colony that had gone dark days ago. As the fleet approached, the vastness of the silent void around the colony was unsettling. The usual hum of galactic communication, the energy signals from bustling cities, all had disappeared. The once thriving planet now looked abandoned, a dark and eerie world without a single sign of life. The Zorathian commander, General Corin, ordered a landing party to descend. The first signs of trouble came almost immediately upon their arrival. The terrain was littered with wreckage, signs of a battle that had taken place not long ago. The Zorathians advanced cautiously, scanning for any signs of the attackers. What they didn't expect to find was a chilling sight: human-made weapons, neatly discarded as though left behind in a hurry. There were no bodies, but the destruction around them spoke volumes. "It's a trap," whispered one of the officers, his voice tight with fear. "This isn't just a regular attack. This is deliberate, organized." As they ventured deeper into the wreckage, they found a message written in the debris, symbols and signs crafted from the remains of their own equipment. It was clear. Humans had been here. But it wasn't just a fleeting raid. The humans had prepared, and they had fought back in ways the Zorathians could not have imagined. Suddenly, the silence broke. A flash of movement in the distance. A small group of humans appeared, emerging from the shadows. They were not the weak, disorganized humans the galaxy had written off. They were soldiers, trained, ready, and skilled. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They were there for one purpose: to fight. Before the Zorathian forces could react, the humans launched a surprise attack, overwhelming the unprepared Zorathian soldiers with a series of devastating strikes. Their tactics were unlike anything the Zorathians had seen before. Small, agile human fighters darted between craters and debris, using the landscape to their advantage. They hit hard and fast, then disappeared just as quickly, leaving the Zorathians with no time to regroup. General Corin was caught off guard. He had underestimated the humans. The small, seemingly insignificant humans were capable of such deadly precision. His forces, accustomed to crushing their enemies with overwhelming might, were now being outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by an enemy they couldn't even see. The humans knew how to strike quickly and vanish before their opponents could retaliate. The Zorathians fought back, but they were no match for the guerrilla tactics that the humans employed. In the chaos, General Corin's forces were driven back to their ship, suffering significant casualties in the process. It was only when they returned to their fleet that they realized just how badly they had been outclassed. The humans had fought them with a strategy that was both terrifying and efficient. Back in the Galactic command centers, the news spread like wildfire. The once dismissed humans had not only defended their colony, they had turned the tables on the most powerful military in the galaxy. There was no denying it now. The galaxy's leaders realized the truth they had long ignored. The humans were not the weak, primitive species they had assumed. They were a force to be reckoned with. Emperor HFY, his pride shattered, called an emergency meeting of the galaxy's leaders. His usual confidence had been replaced with a cold, calculating look. "The humans are far more dangerous than we ever imagined," he said, his voice dark with the weight of realization. "We've made a grave mistake." The leader of the Distrians agreed. "We thought they were too primitive to pose a threat. Now we know they have the will, the determination, and the ability to fight on a level we cannot understand." The galaxy's rulers began to panic. They had ignored humanity for too long. Now they saw that humans had evolved in ways that no one had expected. They had fought not only with advanced technology, but with a kind of raw, unyielding strength that no one had anticipated. "We need to prepare," said the Hectral leader, her voice trembling slightly. "This isn't just a small rebellion. This is the beginning of something far bigger. If the humans are capable of this, what else could they do?" But as they scrambled to make plans, another message arrived, this one from Earth itself. The human government, acting as one unified force, declared their intentions to the galaxy. "We will no longer be silent," the message said. "You have underestimated us for far too long. The time of peace is over. We will fight to be heard. We will fight for our future. And we will fight to be equal to the rest of you." The galaxy had underestimated the humans. Now they would face the consequences. They had underestimated the fury of a species that had been pushed to the edge. The revelation was clear. The humans were no longer weak. The galaxy was about to learn the true meaning of human strength, and it would change everything. The fury of humanity. The realization that humanity was no longer weak sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Alien civilizations, who had once laughed at humans and regarded them as insignificant, now faced a terrifying new reality. The galaxy's leaders scrambled to react to the growing human threat, but they were already too late. Humans had already taken the first step in unleashing their fury. The Zorathians, who had been the first to face humanity's wrath, were still recovering from their disastrous encounter on Velar. General Corrin's fleet limped back to Zorathian space, battered and broken. The once feared empire now found itself on the defensive. Human forces had already launched more strikes, attacking critical trade routes and key military installations across the galaxy with unparalleled precision. The human attacks were not random. They were deliberate and calculated, striking at the heart of galactic power. The first wave of human fighters was just the beginning. Earth's military had been quietly preparing for years, using technology they had developed in secrecy. Advanced weapons, stealth ships, and clever tactics gave them an edge no one had anticipated. The galaxy's leaders, still reeling from their earlier underestimation, now found themselves in a panic. What they thought was a small uprising had quickly escalated into an all-out war. The humans were everywhere, striking with brutal efficiency. The once peaceful galaxy began to feel the pressure as human ships, fast and deadly, appeared on every front. They attacked without warning, using guerrilla tactics that disrupted supply lines, crippled defenses, and left entire fleets in disarray. The aliens had never faced such an unpredictable and relentless force. Where the Zorathians had once dominated with their advanced weapons, humans fought with a raw ferocity that none could match. One of the most terrifying aspects of the human fury was their refusal to back down. Alien species that had long ruled the galaxy were stunned to discover that humans had no intention of surrendering. They fought with everything they had, using their homes as the last line of defense, and every soldier, man, woman, and child was willing to stand firm and protect their future. Humans had something that the galactic empires didn't: an unwavering belief in their ability to survive and conquer, and they would stop at nothing to prove it. The Distrians, a species known for their ruthless efficiency and cold, calculating mind, tried to match the humans' tactics with their own superior technology. But every time they thought they had gained the upper hand, the humans adapted and struck back harder. The more the galaxy's empires fought, the more they realized that they had underestimated their opponent. One of the most shocking developments came when a small human fleet, under the command of Admiral Sarah Hawkins, engaged the Distrian forces in an unexpected attack on their capital planet. It was a battle that the Distrians thought would be over in minutes, but it raged for hours. The humans' technology had evolved faster than anyone expected. Their fighters, smaller but more nimble, outmaneuvered the Distrian warships with ease. For the first time in centuries, the Distrians found themselves forced into retreat. "We've miscalculated," one Distrian general said as he watched his forces fall back in defeat. "The humans, they're unlike any enemy we've ever faced. They don't fight to win. They fight to survive." The Zorethians, too, suffered from the relentless assault. They had once ruled the galaxy with fear, but now they were scrambling to defend their holdings as human forces pressed in from all sides. What was once thought of as a small skirmish was now a full-scale war. The humans' fury knew no bounds. Their fleets were everywhere, striking at Zorethian military outposts, even attacking ships in open space. Each successful strike brought them closer to the heart of the Zorethian Empire. In the midst of this chaos, the humans made a chilling announcement to the galaxy. Their government, now united in the face of external threats, declared that they were no longer content with merely defending their borders. They would not settle for being treated as second-class citizens in the galaxy any longer. "We will no longer allow you to treat us as insignificant," the message broadcasted across the galaxy. "We are humanity. We are not weak. We are stronger than you ever imagined, and we will take our place among the stars." The galaxy had no choice but to take notice. Every time the humans struck, it became more clear. The fury of humanity was unstoppable. It was not the fury of a species bent on destruction for the sake of it, but the fury of those who had been pushed too far. The galaxy's leaders had made a critical mistake, and now they were paying the price. For the first time in a long while, the mighty empires of the galaxy felt fear. They realized that the humans they had once ignored had become a force that could not be defeated with sheer strength alone. The humans were relentless, adaptable, and driven by something far more dangerous than technology: a spirit of survival and defiance. The galaxy's leaders had thought they controlled the universe, but now they were learning the hard way that no amount of power or superiority could prepare them for the wrath of humanity. And as the humans continued to rise, the galaxy knew one thing for sure: this was only the beginning. The humans had shown their fury, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The turning point. The galaxy's greatest powers had underestimated the fury of humanity for far too long, and now they were facing the consequences. With each passing day, the humans grew bolder, their forces stronger, and their attacks more strategic. The Zorethians, Distrians, and Hectralians, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves on the defensive. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting, and it was becoming painfully clear to the alien leaders that the humans were not going to be easily defeated. As humanity's forces pushed further into alien-held territories, the galaxy's once dominant powers began to feel the pressure. Alien fleets that had once been unstoppable now found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned by the humans' guerrilla tactics. The human ships, small and nimble, struck swiftly and without warning. They never fought fair, and they didn't play by the galaxy's rules. They fought with the determination of a species that had fought for survival for centuries. They fought for their future. One of the greatest turning points came when humanity's forces, under the leadership of Admiral Sarah Hawkins, launched an unexpected assault on the Zorathian homeworld. The Zorathians had fortified their planet with every weapon they had, believing it to be impenetrable. But they had made the same mistake that had plagued every other alien species. They had underestimated the humans. Admiral Hawkins led her fleet with precision. They struck the Zorathian capital with devastating force, knocking out key infrastructure and crippling their defenses. The Zorathian Empire, once the most powerful in the galaxy, was thrown into chaos. It was the first time the galaxy had seen such a powerful organized strike against a core world. The humans had gone directly for the heart of the Empire, and they had struck with deadly force. The Zorathian government, now in disarray, scrambled to mount a counterattack, but it was too late. The humans had already made their mark, and the damage was done. In the aftermath, the galaxy's leaders began to realize that they were facing something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The humans had shown the galaxy that they would stop at nothing to secure their place in the universe. Meanwhile, the Distrians, who had suffered heavy losses in battle with human forces, began to question their previous assumptions about human weakness. They had long prided themselves on their cold, calculating strategies, but they had not anticipated the raw, unpredictable force that humanity brought to the battlefield. The Distrians had always relied on their superior technology, but they had failed to account for one crucial element: the human spirit. "We underestimated them," said a high-ranking Distrian general, his voice filled with frustration. "We thought we could crush them easily, but they are relentless. Their tactics are unpredictable." The once confident alien empires now found themselves questioning their own abilities. They realized they had made a grave mistake in thinking that their technology, their vast fleets, and their powerful armies would be enough to stop humanity. The galaxy was changing, and the humans were driving that change. They had become a force to be reckoned with. On Earth, the humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their place in the galaxy. Earth's leaders, united for the first time in history, declared that they would no longer allow the galaxy's empires to dictate their future. They would demand respect, equality, and recognition from the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. "We have proven ourselves," said President Emily Parker, addressing the galaxy in a broadcast that was heard by millions of alien species. "We have shown you that we are not weak, and we will no longer tolerate being treated as inferior. The time for peace is over. We will fight for our future, and we will take our rightful place among the stars." The message was clear. The humans were no longer the helpless species that the galaxy had once dismissed. They had become a powerful force, a force that would not back down. The galaxy's empires were forced to confront the harsh truth. Humanity was no longer an insignificant speck in the universe. They had become a force to be reckoned with. As the galaxy's leaders scrambled to respond, they realized they had a choice. They could continue to fight against the humans, risking a full-scale war that could tear the galaxy apart, or they could negotiate and try to come to a peaceful resolution. The first option seemed increasingly unlikely. The humans had proven that they could win, and they would not stop until they had secured their place in the galaxy. The galaxy's powers, now on the defensive, began to form fragile alliances. They understood that humanity's rise could not be ignored. They needed to find a way to deal with this new threat. The humans had already shown their strength, and there was no turning back. But the galaxy was also beginning to understand something else. Humanity was not just fighting for power. They were fighting for something more. The humans were fighting for their survival, for their future, and for the opportunity to stand as equals in a galaxy that had once dismissed them as weak. And in that struggle, the humans were proving that their greatest strength was not their technology, their weapons, or their tactics, but their unyielding will to survive. As the galaxy's powers prepared for the next phase of the war, they knew one thing for certain. The human fury was not something that could be easily stopped. The turning point had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. The wrath and aftermath. The galaxy had been irrevocably changed. No longer was it a place where the strongest empires ruled with impunity. Humanity, once dismissed as weak and insignificant, had proven that their fury was unlike anything the galaxy's powers had ever faced. They had pushed back against the greatest civilizations and struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. Now, with the Zorathian, Distrian, and Hectral leaders scrambling to maintain their empires, the humans stood poised to claim their place among the stars. The final stages of the conflict were underway. The human forces, led by Admiral Sarah Hawkins, had gained control over several key planets in the galaxy, each one a symbolic victory that demonstrated their resilience. Earth's influence was expanding at an alarming rate, and the galaxy's once dominant empires were forced to negotiate terms with them, realizing that the galaxy's balance of power had shifted for good. The message from Earth's government was clear: humanity would no longer be silenced. They demanded respect, a seat at the table, and the recognition that they were now a force to be reckoned with. The once proud empires that had laughed at humans now found themselves in the difficult position of having to acknowledge their strength. On Earth, President Emily Parker addressed the galaxy one last time. "Look at us," she said, her voice calm but firm. "For years, you saw us as weak, as insignificant. We were just another species, one that you could easily ignore or conquer. But you underestimated us. Now, we stand here, not as your subordinates, but as equals. We have proven our strength, our will to survive. And now, the galaxy must acknowledge us." The leaders of the galactic empires, realizing that the war had reached a point where it was no longer sustainable, began to concede to humanity's demands. But there was no going back to the way things had been. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated, that their will was as unbreakable as their strength. The Zorathians, still recovering from their losses, understood this all too well. The defeat on their homeworld had shaken them to their core. Emperor HFY, once the most powerful leader in the galaxy, now sat in his chambers, considering his next move. The realization that humanity had brought them to their knees was a bitter pill to swallow. "I once thought we were invincible," Emperor HFY said, staring at the remnants of his once glorious fleet. "Now, I know better." The Distrians, too, began to shift their position. Their cold, calculated strategies had failed in the face of humanity's unrelenting attacks. They had tried to crush humanity with sheer force, but they hadn't counted on the determination of a species willing to fight for its survival. It was a mistake they would never make again. As the galaxy's empires began to rebuild, the humans took their place as equals. They forged new alliances, expanded their influence, and ensured that their voice would be heard in the council chambers of the galaxy. The once vast empires, which had been so sure of their power, now had to share the galaxy with a species that had proven its strength and resilience. But as the peace began to settle, one question lingered in the minds of the galaxy's leaders. Had humanity truly reached its peak? Or was this only the beginning? The answer remained uncertain. On Earth, the humans were not content with just securing a place at the table. They had tasted victory, and it had only fueled their desire to push further. There were still corners of the galaxy that had yet to be explored, and there were still enemies that had yet to be confronted. Humanity's thirst for growth and exploration was far from quenched. And so, the galaxy remained on edge. The other species, now aware of humanity's strength, would never be able to look at Earth in the same way again. Humans were no longer the underdogs. They were a force that could change the course of history, a force that would shape the future of the galaxy. The wrath of humanity had not only earned them respect, it had forever altered the galaxy's balance of power. The galaxy's leaders, once arrogant in their superiority, now looked to humanity with a mix of respect, fear, and caution. As the dust settled and the war came to an end, the galaxy knew one thing for certain: the age of the humans had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The question was no longer whether humanity could survive in the vastness of space. The question was how far they would go, and how many would stand in their way. But one thing was clear: No matter what came next, the galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never again would they underestimate the fury of humanity.